I am alive, right here in front of you, with a brand new heart valve, which gives me like a +3 to preaching, so this should be really good today. All right, I need your help here. I need you to imagine this room, okay? Imagine a room with a bunch of guys in it. They're all facing the same way. It's kind of strange. There's not many times culturally that happens. And there's people in front of them that are talking to them. Can you imagine that in your mind? Some of you have no imagination. Hopefully that's helpful. Just look around. Okay, now the men in this room, though, aren't necessarily as experienced as all of you. These are high school and junior high guys. And we are at one of our annual retreats where we all get together. And it's a room like this, just packed full of junior high school. It smells a lot worse than this. And it's a little gigglier. And we're sitting on a stage, and on the stage there's actually a whole bunch of chairs in a row. It's like a panel. And on the panel, we've intentionally brought up a range of guys. So there's a single college guy. I think there's a high school guy, a single college guy, a newly married guy, like the cool sports guy, and then like the nerd guy. Like we just try to get a range of guys, right? That we said these are men you'd want to imitate. These are gospel men up on the stage. And all the way at the end, on a stool, there's a guy named Rick. And Rick is in his 70s-ish, 70-ish, we'll say. Rick is the one I want you to focus on. So look at Rick. He's not really there, but imagine Rick is there. Rick is ripped, okay? He's the rippest of the guys, if that's a word. Rick is a construction worker, a contractor, has been for his entire life. He scales buildings still at that age, and it could build anything. And I tell you that because way in the back of the room, we're allowing these guys to ask questions. It's the panel. We say, let's just get together, ask these guys anything you want to know. And you're a room full of high school boys, so they're thinking about one thing, that's sex. So in the back of the room, a guy said, that's still probably this thing, right? You're all still thinking, hopefully not right now thinking about that. But a guy in the back of the room raises his hand and he says, so what happens when like your wife isn't hot anymore and you don't want to have sex, or the sex isn't good anymore? He's speaking out of a true 14, 15-year-old kid who's concerned because around him he sees a world of men in relationships who don't love their wives well, and wives who don't maybe necessarily love their husbands. In fact, this kid is in a household where mom and dad don't really show much affection. He's just thinking, I don't know why I want to get married, because then like we just have a few years that are awesome, and then I'm stuck forever with a woman. He just thinks marriage seems goofy because I don't want to be stuck with her and she's going to get old and ugly. So we go down the line, and the high school kid goes like, I don't know, I don't have sex. Good answer. And then the single college guy, I'm not sure, I hope someday I have a cool, good-looking wife. Cool. And we go down the line, we're going down the line, a lot of answers of like, well, this is something that's helped me. And we get to Rick, and he says, could you ask the question again? I don't think I understand it. So he says, well, what happens when my wife isn't hot and I don't understand the question because my wife is hotter than ever, and we have better sex than we've ever had. And the room kind of does that. It kind of goes like, oh. And then after about 2 seconds, and everyone imagines 70-year-old Rick having sex, it goes, oh, gross. And then you hear just murmurs of like, Rick still has sex. And then it goes to, that's pretty cool. And then you get like the rumbles of like, Rick rules. And what happens is after that session, what ends up happening is everything gets funneled to Rick because he's just awesome, right? And so a lot of questions for Rick. After that session, we're meeting in a small group like we will tonight with some guys, and a guy named Jake in the group says, do you think Rick would want to ever hang out with me? I was like, you mean Rick, you've never wanted to hang out with Rick? Like Rick doesn't, I don't think Rick has a cell phone. I don't think Rick knows anything about anything in your life. But he said, but Rick could show me how to be a 70-year-old man who loves his wife and still makes love to his wife and it just seems like an awesome life. And all he asked him about was sex, but it seemed like an awesome life. And I said, you should ask him, right? And fast forward now, Jake and Rick end up hanging out. Rick actually ends up leading a small group for him and hangs out with him. We'd maybe call him his mentor, but they really just hung out a lot together. And I'm at Jake's wedding years later, And we're at the reception of Jake's wedding, and he is thanking the people at his wedding. So we've been whisked away years later at Jake's wedding. And I got the honor of marrying him and his wife, and he stands up and he says, I just want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank you for being here, and to our family, to people who did that and made the flowers. And I want to thank Rick, because Rick showed me how to love Jesus. That's different than Jake asked years before. He didn't ask me if I could connect him to Rick because he wanted to love Jesus. He just asked, could I hang out with Rick because Rick might give me the secrets to how to have a good sex life when you're 70, which was actually the book Rick later wrote, How to Have a Good Sex Life. It's one of the books here on your sheet, Rick. How to have a good if only Rick would write a book. So I share that with you because it's really important. Jake learned the reason Rick had an incredible life with his wife was because he loved Jesus. The gospel is what made Rick incredible. It wasn't that Rick found some secret. It wasn't because he had took some cool herb and like it made his sex life better, right? It wasn't that he worked out a lot and his wife still found him attractive. It wasn't that he read the right book. It wasn't even that he was a Christian. It's that he took that gospel and let it transform him. And the gospel of Jesus Christ called him to love his wife in a way that held them together. And that they would go on vacations, and his answer would, and I'd say, how was your vacation? And he says, we never left the hotel room. I said, it's gross, Rick. I don't want to hear about that. But tell me more. That sounds interesting. How does that work? We hear this word, right? Mentorship. And in my heart, I think, I don't have time to meet with another guy that I have to help. Or I think, I don't have time to meet with a guy who's going to tell me how crappy I am, who's going to tell me how I've failed, who's going to ask me to check things off a list, and I'm going to have to say, yes, I lied. I'm not going to, I don't have time for that, and I've done that, and I don't have time for a guy to just help me be a better man. And I want to encourage you that I don't want you to do that. I don't think that's what we're called to do. I think we're called to build the body so that more people can know the gospel, the one we just heard Brian talk about, and that can know that if they dwell in the presence of God, they will be transformed. I want people to know that, and so we're called to be men who make disciples and help people know that gospel, help them know that there's joy and peace, and you can suffer in a way that's different than anything else that the world tells you. And that's why I think we need to get together. And that's why I need to have coffee with guys, because I need people to build me. If we look in Ephesians, this is Ephesians 4, verse 11 through 13, we hear this. So Christ himself gave these people, he's going to list, the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in faith and in knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Why do I need to obtain the fullness of Christ? I don't meet with a guy and he helps encourage me to be Christ-like, to imitate Christ, like Rick did with Jake. I don't do that just to be a better man. In fact, there's part of my life that was what it was. I just want someone to make me better. Can you make me better? Can you be the means to my end of being more successful or making more money or being a better husband or a better friend or being liked more? But in fact, we want that because we want to build the church. We asked Rick, he's just a stud, right? He's the kind of guy you meet with, and in like 2 minutes, he asks you a question that like blows your mind, and then for a week you're thinking about it. And I said, hey, Rick, how do you be this guy? And he said, man, I get it from my father. And I said, oh, because I knew Rick, he didn't have a very good dad. His dad also was a construction worker. That's how he learned it. But his dad also drank a lot and didn't treat his family very well, and Rick or his siblings very well. And I said, I don't understand. Like, you just do the opposite of your father? He said, no, you're my Father, like my Father in heaven, right? I thought, that's kind of corny, Rick, but true. So for Rick, he wanted to represent the family name. And that's why he wanted to meet. That's why he gave time to young men. That's why he himself met with people. I just want to share 3 real quick things as we wrap up here. Here's 3 things that I hear over and over that would be counter to what I've learned in my experience with men like Rick, having them in my life and also getting the opportunity to pour in other men. First, we don't need good men. I don't need you to be a better man. We need gospel men who will point people to Jesus. Let's build each other so more can join the family, not just be better men who will carry our family name. Secondly, you're not too old. In fact, some of my greatest mentors are really old guys who have been dead a very long time. And thankfully, they wrote things, and thankfully, they published those, and I can download those and read them on my Kindle. Mentors in my life who are old, dead guys named Luther, right, that I can sit down with, and John Calvin, and I can learn from them. You're not old. In fact, as a pastor at a church that our average age is 26 years old, I beg you, if you were older than 26 years old, reach down and pick some guys out of the mud and bring them with you. We need you. We just need your experience as a guy who's been trying to follow Jesus the best he can in your life. That's all we need. That's the criteria. And lastly, thirdly, you can't do this on your own. So if we're going to build the body to help more people join the body, you can't do it on your own. Could you imagine people going into battle and the guys being like, I'm just going to kind of go out when I want. Let's all kind of do our own thing, and then we'll hopefully take the enemy out. You can't do this on your own. You got to find people who have been ahead of you, who know, and link arms together. And finally, guys, you just have to know there's a lot more at stake here than your egos, or your comfort, or your reputation, or your feelings. There are men and women in your cities and in your towns, in your churches, in your workplaces, in your families, who are orphans, who are dead, who are waiting for their family. So let's act like family. Let's represent the name of our Father, and let's build each other up. Amen. Let's pull each other up. Let's encourage each other, and let's build our family. Let's build the church, and let's just destroy the darkness that's in the cities and towns and homes that we live in. Thank you.